Lost in a session, fever pictures on. Crazy from the go, fever picture lamp. Lost in a session, fever pictures on. In another land, a fever picture lamp. Lost in a session, and I getting on. Fever picture lambing, and I getting on. Lost in a session, and I feeling warm.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, man. I haven't seen you for a while. The last time I saw you face to face was for the Art Week in Hong Kong last year, when you did that beautiful event, like the opening event for the Art Week. And I see that you're actually sitting inside your lounge at the Potato Head.
That's right.
And for the people that don't know you, maybe we should give them a little introduction about like what you're doing in Hong Kong. As far as I can tell, is that you were one of the first, if not the first, that kind of started with this kind of new concept of an audio focused lounge club, like a lounge that is really focused on having like really good speakers, a good audio setup, perfect mixer, and so on and so on. And maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. Well, thanks for having us, Hans, and hi to the crew, Exberliner crew. So to come back to your question, we opened doors in 2016, and I think the idea of audiophile sound has been around since the 1970s, really.
Yeah. Of course, since the launch.
Yeah, I've seen it in Japan over the years. You know, I was lucky enough to go there to visit in the 90s and onwards, and I DJed a few times over there. So they always had an immaculate setup when it came to the choice of mixers, the booth setup, and detail to sound and lighting. And once you're there, you don't want to come back because you get spoiled that way. You know? And essentially, it's not so much a question of cost, but a question of how you decide to install sound, and there's some principles behind it. You know, so once you study that, and I think any sound engineer will agree, good sound has to do with a few factors such as room insulation, the choice of speakers, the right size of speakers, or to make whatever for that particular room, and then the rest is to your preference. You know, how you want the sound to be. In our case, it was that you see, we have a library here of music kind of collected over the last 30 years. And like yourself, I'm really into eclectic music, into world music, into electronic music where it started, you know, German electronic music in the 70s, if you like, avant-garde stuff. And then it became house and techno later on. But I think the idea of eclectic mixing led to us researching different genres. And so this was the idea behind it. And so we chose some vintage sound to go with it. And it was well received, I would say. And I think Hong Kong is not so much a music city like Berlin, but the response was kind of almost overwhelming. People really supported us from day one. They liked the idea that we brought some diversity to the music, you know, scene over here. And I think that's still very much a welcome concept, or a concept that works these days.
Yeah, you pretty much became a fixed point in a lot of like the tour plans of like DJ friends and colleagues. When I look at their tour plans, very often I see that they're having like one day in Hong Kong where they definitely play at Potato Head. So you really became an institution like that, even though you're not like really, you don't have a focus, as you mentioned, that much on like a dance floor or on the dance scene, but it's also a place where you can just like sit and really enjoy the music and have a drink and have a chat with your friends, and in between just like sit and listen, because yeah, the audio quality is really one of a kind, and it's something that overwhelms you when you're just used to like bad sound systems, as like unfortunately a lot of clubs in Berlin are installed with these sound systems. Then you're really overwhelmed when you come to a place like yours where the sound is so unique.
Well, I think it's also to do with decisive, with a decision that you make as someone who plays music. You know, that we like to start out slow and then gradually build it up, because there's no point to start with 125 BPM when there's 5 people in the room. You know, I think it's very much like food. There's like an entree, there's a main course, or maybe that's just for old people who enjoy food, right? But I think no, there's an art form to it, how you build things up. And so when you come in, and we open early, so people do come in from 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and there's a social element to it. So if you look around here in this room, I may as well just take this thing here. You see, there's like lounge chairs everywhere. So that's the idea of 1950s lounging, you know, where people actually, the idea, the concept was people sat together, and there was the art of conversation behind it. And I think that's a meaningful thing in the digital age, that you speak in person. And quite often when we have guests here, they speak to one another. They have different backgrounds, they have different ethnic backgrounds, job backgrounds, but everyone is welcome. So so that helps, you know, create a friendly atmosphere. And then as you build up the night, say after 2-3 hours, or when we have a specialist night, people do end up dancing quite a bit, you know. But it's not a thing that goes on to the early hours. We finish like 2 o'clock or something in the morning.
Yeah, it's a bit more moderate than in Berlin. And one thing also I think what could be very interesting right now is the concept that you have with your place is a little bit more safe for the crisis than what we see with like the bigger clubs everywhere in the world. Right now, it's like the bigger your place is, the more money you lose, and even with like the lesser strict restrictions now in Berlin, people are just not really able to keep up their clubs and run their clubs properly, because the restrictions are just too harsh for them. If I think of like a place that is like 250 square, they're maybe allowed like 13 people or something like that as a crowd. So when you have a small place like yours, it's much easier, I think, to keep the social distancing alive and still have like kind of like a pleasant experience compared to like a club that is very sterile and so on and so on, you know.
Well, for us, it was such that we had obviously not a complete lockdown, but we had social distancing measures as soon as we were allowed to open again. We were closed for about 2 weeks to start off security, safety measures, and then we were always, from day one, we knew how to deal with the situation in Hong Kong. We could have been closed for 2 months, Our family in Indonesia, they're still closed. We don't know when they're going to open. That's heartbreaking, because they're much larger, and they basically need business every day to operate. And
yeah.
But still, the big question mark, I think, they will open again at one point, but we don't know when. So Hong Kong, on the contrary, has been since we had a few epidemics. We had SARS, we had swine flu, all in the 2000s, and when we had our first case in early February, we contained it pretty quickly. Everyone started to wear masks straight away from day 2, and so we've learned from it. And out of I think we had 1,066 cases up to today, but we had 4 people that passed away from. That's nothing, Imagine in a city at 7.6 million, where everyone lives next to one another. I mean. So that's it shows that you can contain it if you have the right ways to manage it. And in Asia, I think we've been lucky in that respect.
Yeah.
Now, coming back to what we're doing over here, we do have social distancing measures, such as 4 people per table. And then when it's more than that, you need to be 1.5 meters apart, and we have little screens in between. But because we've been good for 20 days, no new infections, we're going to open this weekend. We're actually open already for 2 or 3 weeks, but everyone is allowed to open now. Restaurants, even clubs. Imagine that, So I think good practice is the answer, but of course, having a small space, it's a different experience altogether. Maybe the pressures and the dynamics are also different, but in the end, you enjoy the same product. You enjoy music. Maybe the type of music might be different, but I would say that we even had Berlin style music quite a few times with friends coming over and some household names, you know, being over here. We just don't focus on one particular genre of music. We kind of were very eclectic and open-minded.
Yeah. You're talking about something that we kind of witnessed, like really live. You could really see in like the everyday reports about how this virus spread. You could see like the reactions in Asia were a lot more based on the experience that you guys had before. I remember like when I came to Hong Kong the first time, I was still in the backlash of like the bird flu, and everybody on the plane was like wearing masks, you know, for the first time in my life that I really saw people wearing masks. And it was all throughout only Asians that wore the masks, like none of the Westerners wore those masks. No. And now it's of course it's a very common sight when I just came here with the bus, you know, everybody on the bus had their mask on. And I think if we would have had this experience before, like a lot of people had that in Asia before, the outcome would have been very different, you know. And you could see that, especially Hong Kong and a couple of other smaller states had it under control, like very, very quickly. And what do you think, like, is going to be like the outcome for you guys, like for your business? You also have a restaurant in front of like the room that we're seeing right now. There's like a very lively, beautiful restaurant with a bar that is much bigger than this room. Did it affect you like in a way that was like frightening for a time, or did you just like really know how to deal with it?
Of course. I mean, first of all, we all had to, you know, we had to close for 2 weeks, and even before then, I mean, this is another point, but Hong Kong has been going through a lot of difficult times in the last year or so. You know, we had the protests, and they're just about to start again tomorrow. So that's been pretty heavy on us in terms of how we do in terms of business. What most staff had to do, they had to take a pay cut. First 30%, then 40 or 50, now it's back to 20%. But since we were able to reopen, the feedback has been really great. That community supports us, you know. So there's a great spirit. It's a bit like maybe New York. Some people compare it to that. People are positive. There's like let's go out and let's support, you know, because I'm going nuts anyway in my apartment that is tiny, you know. So.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's good. I think that's needed. But then from a business perspective, I mean, there's uncertainty, a lot of uncertainty. And I think that's maybe the more sort of the quiet struggle that you have as an artist, you know. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow because the change is somehow drastic, you know.
Exactly. And I think also what you have to have in mind is that the rents in Hong Kong, especially like in around that area where Potato Head is, they're just really ridiculous. Like, so if you're not making money, you're like losing money in a big major way. And I think I don't know how the state support is in Hong Kong. If here in Germany it was pretty much full on after like 1 month that we could apply, like every artist could apply for like some money from the state. And that worked out for most people that I know. It worked out really well. For some it didn't. But how is it in Hong Kong? I think you guys probably don't even have the chance that the city is gonna carry you on through a crisis like that, you know,
I think
like in Europe.
It's a good question actually, because I think Germany is known to have very good infrastructure for the arts and the culture industries in general, you know, and hats off to that. I mean, I grew up over there, and I always admired that the arts were, even in terms of classical music, very much supported. You know, there's a culture of it, and I see it as high culture. Hong Kong is business culture. It's about money, but also not just that, you know. It's been a very diverse place, especially in the last sort of 5 years. You've seen a lot of people. It's always had a lot of people from different countries, but maybe demographics have changed, you know. as the world is moving closer, it has been through globalization. You get people from different parts. You could have someone from Brooklyn here, someone from London, someone from Berlin, and
Yeah,
so there's a lot of familiarity, and it's different. It's multicultural in a different way, but everyone is doing something. Everyone's being proactive. Now the government, they put a lot of, I think they dedicate something like 15. Okay, it's a 7.6 million city. They put like 15 million euros into the arts. Okay, but I would say 85% of that went to already existing associations or museums, galleries, and public basically funded spaces. So when it comes to freelancers or musicians, if you're just a single guy, it's super tough. There is a little grant available. You have to apply for it, but it's not a lot, compared to the other industries. That basically, if you run a business, you can get at least 50% of your average salary for 5 months from the government. Yeah. So when people have rent reductions and they have cost savings through the government scheme, you can still operate because the tax is really low. It's like
right. You have very, very low taxes, right?
But I think guys like us, we're a little bit marginalized in that sense. We're not considered to be that important to the economy,
Yeah.
But that's not a reason not to do what we do. I think that's more so a reason to stay on track. And perhaps more like in our case, where we've been around for a while. For us, it's more like a way of life and a mission, perhaps. Yeah. And I think it's good to be smart about it, But yeah, there are certain realities. How's it been for you?
Here it's been very, very tough for my friends that are running clubs, and I have a lot of them in Berlin. They're suffering a lot. And there's been everything like from worst case scenarios, from like suicides of people that I know to like people just like really waiting until they can open. Because right now, like honestly, like a place like Sameheads, which is very prestigious in Berlin for the underground, much like yourself in Hong Kong, we pretty much have like the same kind of lineup in Sameheads that you would have at Potato Head, right? It's all about like record diggers. It's very kind of left field disco and people that are very dedicated with their music. And I talked to them like just like a couple of days ago, and for them it really doesn't make sense to open the place under like the kind of circumstances that the government allows them to right now, because they could just not host enough people that it would make sense to actually pay someone or 2 or 3 persons to be there at the time and work. And you could never make that money back, because especially now in summer where people are like staying outside, you cannot open early, because if you open early, people are just going to stay outside and they're just going to rather buy a beer at the Späti, or at some shop, because it's much cheaper than to go into your place and buy a beer there and sit outside. And so yeah, a lot of those kind of promises and regulations that the government came up with and the laws that were passed, they are kind of a little bit more cosmetic for their own sake, for the party's sake, or for the politicians' sake, than that they are actually working. For restaurants, it's pretty much the same. Like they got like a cut on the withholding tax. I think from 21% to like 7% or something like that. But that doesn't help you if you're not making any money. It doesn't help if you're just taking less tax. And that's a big problem. Some places I heard now in Munich, like some clubs, they opened up and they have like regulations that they put like circles on the floor where people are supposed to dance in these circles, and they're not allowed to go outside of these circles. So for every person, there's supposed to be like 15 square meters or something in space in the club, which is ridiculous, because nobody can operate a business like that. I heard of a model in Münster where they did like a party with Gert Jansson, which also played at the opening where we played together for the Art Week in Hong Kong. And Gert played there for an audience, and they had to pay 70 euros for a ticket.
I saw that video actually. That was quite a good.
Yeah,
came over. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of bizarre, you know. It's really just it's something that I don't really it doesn't compute with me, with my experience of like clubbing and seeing like how the whole dance music thing in Europe evolved, and just. It's crazy, you know, from like the time, like how we built this stuff, like playing in bunkers and some nitty gritty, dirty fucking shitholes in Berlin. And it's just unbelievable to see that happen. There are people dancing with masks on in circles, you know, separated from each other. It's something I don't want in my life. I think
no, but you know,
it would decline.
Look, even foolishness needs an outlet, you know. So that's understandable. You know, you know, everyone's trying certain ideas, and some of them fail, some of them may be smart in the long run, but is it sustainable? You know, I think the world is changing really, and I think it's more about the set of values that we believe in, and maybe that's the interesting part. Also, you know, look, we had epidemics, you know, 100 years ago. They came from America to Spain or whatever. We had epidemics in Hong Kong, and I read reports about it, what happened in areas where people just passed away, and then some doctor came from the UK and found the virus after, you know, isolated it, and then it was better again. So I think we've been, it's just a, you know, a process of mankind, human sort of tragedy, if you like. You had AIDS, right? That kind of pretty much wiped out the club scene in New York.
Exactly. I mean, it always
it
like
picks up again at one point.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. You know, it won't die. It will pick up again. It will.
Of course. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, I watched a lot of movies and documentaries about like the Second World War and Berlin in the Second World War, and before, like the time before the war and so on, and then how things changed. And I really tried to learn from that in the last weeks. Because what I think, like my personal feeling is that we're going to see like a renaissance of like the speakeasy, of like the secret, the kind of secret clubs, the kind of hearsay, hush hush places, you know, where people just exchange addresses and cards and membership cards. And it's going to get more private, and it's going to be like a little bit more hidden from the surface. But of course, there's parties going on. Even now in Berlin, there's parties going on. I even been invited to some. I know that there's an underground, and probably it's going to make the underground stronger again. And on the other hand, you're going to see like this kind of weird, very commercial, very law and order atrocities of like the other form, or the other way of like this kind of modern clubbing or whatever it's supposed to be. So I think we're going to see both. Yeah, definitely.
I think because you guys in Berlin, you almost had like an oversaturation of options, you know, when it came to clubbing. So that the idea of the social experience, what we understand about real underground clubbing, maybe got a little bit watered down anyway in the last decade, you know.
It's true.
But there's one thing that I realized, and this is like just my observation from the last 3 weeks, and it included people that organize festivals in the region, so on. They hadn't been out, right? They'd been in lockdown somewhere, and then they managed to come back in. And it was then first night out, and we played early 90s, even, you know, let's say not rave classics, but stuff that was quite euphoric and that reminded us of the early 90s or whatever. And you know, it was just like a little bit lighthearted poppy fun, if you like. And the way people reacted was like, hold on, this is the 90s again, without, to me, it was like, they're as loose as, you know, back then, without maybe the chemical side of it, if you like, you know. But I see people loosening up and appreciating the every minute of the freedom that they have. So that's the positive, I think, that they're conscious about how they go out, what they want to hear, and they stay longer, and they stay in one place, and that's fine, because before that they used to hop, and it kind of broke the flow as well, you know, from a DJ perspective sometimes.
How's the underground scene in Hong Kong doing? I remember the first time I was in Hong Kong, like over 10 years ago. I've been invited from, I met like these French graffiti writers at night on the street writing graffiti. I think I told you about it. And one of the guys, he was like super heavy into like sound system culture and reggae. And he brought me to a illegal underground reggae party in Hong Kong, which I thought was amazing to see, like Chinese dreadlocks, and nobody smoked weed. There literally was not one sense of smell of weed or whatever in the air, because of course you have a very, very heavy drug policy in Hong Kong. And weed is way too easy to detect when someone's smoking weed in public. But so yeah, it was like a ganja-free sound system party, but the rest was very authentic. Like the sounds they played were super heavy, great selections, and live toasting, which was like not bad at all. And I have a very, very positive memory of that. Did you hear about like any small underground parties like lately in Hong Kong?
Yeah, sure. There are quite a few. You know, a few people have opened like clubs. Underground clubs where you just sort of pay an entrance fee, and then some of them you bring your own drinks, or there isn't really a bar, or it's just the sound system, and it's not fancy, but it's like kind of like some of them kind of the German model, I would say, of clubbing, and the bookings they reflect that European sort of aesthetic. It's maybe 5 of them, I would say. I mean, we probably have 20 clubs. A lot of them are a bit more commercial, but I would say a good 30-40% now are independent, and it's been a growing trend as well, which is nice to see. So I'd say a handful, but also there's a handful of festivals as well. Sadly, like this year, we had 2 gigs were cancelled. One was Sonar, Hong Kong, and the other one was a later big festival. And festivals in the region will be cancelled this year, obviously. But I think everyone knows that we just have to sit it out and bounce back when we can. But will it be the same? That's the question. I guess you guys are German probably discuss it a lot more, because there must be a lot of DJs affected, for their livelihood, really, That's insane, right? You have tens of thousands, right? That all of a sudden
it's crazy. I mean,
even the superstars, like.
I mean, just I can speak for myself, and I lost in February. It started like end of February for me, because we were supposed to tour with African 808 in Italy, and this whole plan got canceled. That was the first plan that got canceled. And at the time you thought like, oh, well, let's see if it's probably going to come to Germany, but let's see how bad it is, And then within 2 weeks later, I basically lost every single booking that I had until, the entire year. Basically, I lost every single booking. My booker called me from London and told me, pretty much we have to cancel everything that's in the calendar. Every single festival in Europe shut down at the time. And I know all my friends, all my professional DJ friends, like the people that really live from their art. We're all fucked. So what everyone did was to apply for that state money and to apply for this thing they call like Mindestaufwandsentschädigung, like kind of a social security money, so you got like the city to pay for your rent for like 6 months until August, end of August. My rent is paid for, and I applied for like some money from the Bundes, from like the local state banks, and there you get like another fund, and this fund is basically to cover costs for investments that you're taking, for whatever you need for your job, So you have like these 2 things covered, at least for a limited amount of time, and that is really what saved everyone right now. but I'm not sure how it's going to be in like August and September when that money runs out. Personally, I lived on a very, very, very low profile, and I just invested in painting utensils and canvases, and I painted a lot with my girlfriend. We made probably like 15 paintings until now, and that's going to continue. So what we're trying to do is really get like a really nice art show ready until like next month, and then we're going to see if we can find a way to present it somewhere in Berlin, or if we're just going to do like an online presentation and just sell the stuff online, which I've done, as you know, like numerous times before. You're the proud owner of two of my paintings, 3 of my paintings. And
I guess necessity creates invention or innovation, if you like. So, I mean, a question back to you, do you find that your creativity has been inspired? I mean, it's probably been forced, to a certain degree. But do you feel really inspired, or do you feel that your statements are more strong, or that your views and opinions are more,
It's very funny that you asked me that, because it was very intense. It was like really changing. I had times where I was so scared, like at the beginning, where I really didn't know how this whole thing is gonna come together, where it was not clear that we would get state funding or city funding or whatever. And I had all my money was gone, all the jobs I was supposed to have, not just the bookings, but also like art shows were canceled. And it was very scary. And so what I did at the time was I really took my last money that I had, and I went literally the last day where the shops were open before everything closed down. And I went to the art store, and I bought from all of my last money, I bought just like paint and canvas, and went home and started like building canvases and started grounding them. And that's what you do, right? Like you have to keep going. And at that time, it like something clicked, something changed, because I got once I started working, I got really obsessed by working, and I felt like that it was very inspiring to stay at home and to completely like separate yourself from the world, and it was actually great, and I had a great time, to be honest, and that kind of gradually changes after like a month or so, 1.5 months, when you're in the quarantine. And you get a little bit more pissed off and a little bit more thin-skinned, and then you sometimes need more time to just let go and really just do nothing, just sleep all day, or just like watch a movie and really take it slow, And then I started like kind of, when we were allowed to go outside again, or spend more time outside, I spent a lot of time in nature and just like went to the parks. Every day I tried to like walk at least like 4 or 5 miles and really spend time in the forest. And that helped a lot, kind of like building, kind of like an everyday input that creates an output, and we're working with the colors and with the canvas makes more like it kind of creates like an urge to be creative and to express and to be positive. And and it was great. I think we really did we did a really good job so far with the paintings that we made. Oh. On the other hand, with music, it was quite the opposite. Like I could not really get into editing stuff. Before, I spent 3 months with Dirk in the studio, and we were just working on the new African 808 album. And so I had this overflow of like musical creativity and music around me. And then this quarantine hit, and we were not finished with the album. We just were missing like 1.5 songs. You know, one song the vocals were missing, and one song the whole editing structure was missing, and we couldn't finish it because some other musicians were involved that were stuck in Copenhagen. Our friend Makadem, who's from Kenya, and he could not leave the country. Still can't leave the country, and so we kind of got like frozen into that process, and that felt very depressing. And I couldn't really like work on that material, and I kind of didn't want to work on it, and I didn't want to work with music, and I really kind of stayed away from it as much as I could. I didn't even like get into cleaning my records or like listening to a lot of records at home. I listened like on a normal level, you know, when I had friends coming over, and then you listen to some albums and whatnot. But it took me a while until that attraction came back. And now 3 days ago, I started like really getting into like editing stuff again, and I spend like 5 hours today editing music. You know, so that's a great thing in like the job personally. Like what I'm doing in the field that I'm working is that I can always switch from like painting and music. But you know, what makes music so attractive to me is like sharing it with other people, and just the image that I'm just at home and I'm editing stuff. It's not quite on the level that you have like when you're playing live, you know, and when you're DJing or when you're playing the live act, and it's a completely different show, you know. I really need that correspondence. I need that interaction, you know, and I need the places, you know, like playing at your place brings a different energy than doing a DJ set at home, you know, like that's something. A lot of people are streaming. I don't know if you are following like this kind of streaming culture a little bit.
I knew this was going to kick off, and then you see everyone, you know, one in their bedroom, their underpants. It's not a pretty look, right? So
No. Honestly,
I prefer to look at.
I thought the best the best streaming video I saw was the one where they had like some guy edited out the sound, and it was like a cut up of like different streams of like different DJs. And there was no music, so you would only see like the guys like posing to their music, and sometimes the only thing that he did, he edited like little burps when they were like drinking from the water, like, and it was really funny. That was like the
well, but you know, isn't that a reflection of how, you know, culture has gone into this popularism thing? You know, not just in politics, but in culture as well. You know, so if I look at something that's really moved me in this year, it's like the amount of great artists that have unfortunately passed away. You know, one minute you've got Manu Dibango, then you've got, you know, Bill Withers, then you have Christina, you know, you have, I know, it was insane. And it made me want to almost do a tribute, choose like some of the more obscure tracks and some favorite, and talk about their legacy, you know, do like a radio thing. And really, that's where I got energy from, you know, to actually started writing, putting an album that I liked, and I looked into it, and I started talking about the instruments, the musicians, and about like melodic scales, and you know, stuff that I don't really pay so much attention to, just not like consciously, subconsciously, of course. I am driven by something, but then when you look into it, then all of a sudden, you get a lot of interesting facts that you pick up on, you know. So maybe what I'm saying is, it kind of makes you question what's important, you know, in the things that you like, and how you maybe find something meaningful for yourself to follow.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, I feel the same.
And following, let me just this one thing I wanted to ask you. So you talked about collaboration. Was this like, you mentioned a girlfriend? So was this like a conscious decision, or was this something that happened by accident? Because one thing that someone said to me in Hong Kong, who also runs a spot, or we went there together to Salon, right? So the guy's also has a studio, and he's into jazz and he's into arty stuff, and he does what he does out of passion, which is, I like these people. So he said that in times like these, it would be good for like-minded people to collaborate, to take it one step further. What do you make of that?
I think he's right. As you said, like this kind of pressure brings out the best in us. It concentrates our options and also our attention. And what is the result for like someone that is conscious and creative is that you kind of question what you've done before. You take a closer look, and you come out with like the stuff that you think is really worth keeping, and the rest just has to disappear. It has to dissolve, you know. And I think that's what we're going to see as well in the creative scene, in the music scene, in the art scene, is that the things that are really moving and are really touching and are really heartfelt, these things are going to be successful and are going to continue. And a lot of like the unnecessary hype and whatever
Right.
things, you know, like these things that have grown too fast, they're going to fall off and are going to be forgotten, you know. And I think we're almost done with our time. So
Okay.
that's almost a really good Schlusswort, as we say in German. Do you have any final words? How is if I just have like one more question? How is your family doing? You have a little kid, and how has the experience been for your wife and the kids so far?
Well, look, I think it was remarkable. First, he's like 10 months old. So he was born on was it July 14th, which is Bastille Day of the revolution, and we literally had a revolution kicking off just around us, you know. And even some guests, I think Maceo from De La Soul was over. I was walking to the hotel, and literally I had police guys standing with the guns, and like rocks had been, you know, and there was tear gas everywhere, so I had to run in, and he was just sitting in the hotel eating his buffet. Didn't know what was going on. It was quite abstract, but funny. And so he's born in the middle of all that, I think, and he's been smiling ever since. I mean, we called him Herbie after Herbie Hancock. So. So in a way, he's been a blessing, you know, and he also condenses down what's important in life. It grounds you. So I feel blessed. My wish is that, you know, we get to live on our passions that we do. We have some political uncertainty over here. I think the world is just a bit mad right now. To me, it feels like that Germany is probably one of the good countries, you know. I know there's stuff going on as well. But it seems healthy from the outside, you know, the system that you have. I mean, forget about America and China. These are the three other extremes, if you like. But then again, you know what? You know, people also change, right? I mean, politics change every 5 years, 10 years. There's a new guy, and things ease out. I think the pendulum swings, you know, from the left to the right and so on. But it's definitely interesting times. So my wish would be that we get to meet one day soon again, that we can exchange some records and you can come over here. I think they're letting people, not quite yet, but they will be letting people back in at some point, business travelers. But then you have to do 2-week quarantine, which means you wear a tag. But then, say if you go to Greece now, they're opening up, right? So if you do a COVID test, if you're cool, 3 days before, they let you in. So there's hope.
I'll do it anytime. I also do the quarantine. I don't have a problem. I lived in Hong Kong in like a I think 4 square feet apartment that just had enough space to fit in like one bed. And so
who knows? You might be the first crazy artist that comes with his paintings, and everyone's going to jump all over you. we did well last time when you made a painting that I was very lucky to get off you. I mean, that just summed everything up, man. Like the tension between the two. Yeah.
Same for you. If everything opens up here and you feel like exploring your German roots anywhere soon, like let me know. We have an extra room for you anytime. So I hope to see you.
Only if you make me German breakfast.
Better this year than next year, and if not,
sure.
I probably see you again online somewhere here on a video chat. It was good to see you, brother.
You too. Well, thanks for having us, man. And peace out to you.
Lost in a session. Fever pictures on. Crazy from the go. Fever picture land. Lost in a session.